So let's go ahead and get started. Many of you may have been surprised when coming to Galapagos expecting coral reefs, but we have rocky reefs. This is Gardner Bay at Espanola Island. But this does not negate the fact that we have an abundance of life on these rocky reefs, and one of the biggest representations is from the phylum Echinodermata, which literally means spiny skin. This phylum has about 7,500 species on this planet, and it includes sea urchins, such as this white sea urchin, sea stars, sea cucumbers, sand dollars. They're all part of this massive phylum, and we see representation everywhere. Now, on these rocky reefs, survival is very important, and some of these fish are highly camouflaged. This is called a calico lizard fish. Now, a little farther in the water column, some of you may have noticed this one. This is a cornet fish, and some of you described it as almost translucent. These are closely related to pipefish and seahorses, and they do have the capability of changing their coloration almost instantly. Now, in these rocky reef areas, you do find juvenile fish. They're staying away from larger predators offshore. This is a battery of pelican barracuda in the shallows. These can get up to almost a meter in length when they become more pelagic. Also, an endemic species, these are black-striped salamas, and this is a large polarized school. Now, fish in general have the length of their body, what is called a lateral line. It's a very nerve-packed web. And when one fish will change direction, the one next to it can sense that and change direction in unison, one way to confuse potential predators. Now, if you haven't seen this fish, you have not been snorkeling here in the Galapagos. These are razor surgeonfish. And you may wonder, such a large fish in the shallows, maybe they'll have predators such as sea lions, but they have built-in defense. You take a look at those three white dots in the peduncle right before their tail fin or caudal fin. Those are sharp spines. A young sea lion might think twice before taking one. Now, we have two main species of benthic rays. This is a diamond stingray. And when I say benthic, this is to say that most of their life history is very close to the seafloor bottom. They will bury themselves in the sand, and they're also actively feeding on the sandy bottom. Closely related in the cartilaginous group are sharks. We have 32 species of sharks here in Galapagos, and the white tip reef shark is the most common of them for us because they are a shallow water shark. These can get up to almost 6 to 7 feet in length, including that long caudal fin. Now, some of you may have heard that sharks have to continuously move for respiration. This is not necessarily true for certain reef sharks. You can see them laying down, resting in little caves. Now, what's happening here, if you look carefully, you see it's slowly opening its jaw. So many reef shark species, they will rest, many of them are nocturnal, and when they're resting, slowly opening that jaw, I did slow this down a bit, and as they're opening the jaw, they're causing suction, and water's coming in, and you can see it coming out of the gill slits, so they can easily have respiration. It's been a wonderful journey for Pacific green sea turtles. We've seen them everywhere. Pacific green sea turtles are the only species that nest within the Galapagos archipelago. We do occasionally get a hawksbill that comes into the shallows, but they do not actively nest here. Now, in the Pacific, it's a large area. There are quite a few different subspecies, and the one here in Galapagos is considered an endemic subspecies because they have a high rate of fidelity, which means they're coming back to nest on the same areas and the same beaches here in Galapagos. This particular one is a male. You can see that long tail, trailing tail. Same in giant tortoises, terrestrial tortoises, we've learned. And at the beach, we had this large bull sea lion who was barking consistently, trying to scare us away. In just a moment, you'll be able to see this very large canines protecting its territory during breeding season. And there's Ricky, one of our sailors, always keeping an eye on us. Now, I did mention that we have rocky reefs, but we do have some hard corals. This is at Champion off of Floriana Island. And this particular genus is called Posiopora and has about 9 species under it, about 5 common ones. And this next genus is called Pavona, which has about 4 main species under it. Now, both of these groups can take the brute force of this drastic temperature change between the 2 seasons. We also have some soft corals, such as this Gregorian fan coral. And this is a Galapagos sunstar. Now, this doesn't look like a sea star, but in this next shot, you'll be able to see the variation in the color, but you'll also see these radial arms, up to 25 to 35 radial arms coming off of the center. This is a pyramid sea star, one of our largest stars in length. And I'm sure everyone remembers the name of this particular sea star. Yes, chocolate chip sea star. Now, many of you were probably trying to stay away from these, but if you got close to the hatpin sea urchin, you would have noted this incredible deep indigo coloration. And speaking of coloration, many juvenile fish have different phases that keeps them away from the predators of the adults. And if you're in the shallows, you may have noticed some of these fish with iridescent blue dots, only a couple inches in length. This is the juvenile of this, which is a giant damselfish. Once again, damsels are, there's a big representation of damsels here in Galapagos. This is also a calico lizardfish, but you note the coloration different from the previous one, depending on what substrate it is on, rocky substrate or the sandy bottom. Now, another large representation on the reef are parrotfish. We have numerous species here. This is a blue-chin parrotfish, most likely a female. Now, parrotfish are interesting. For the exception of one species on this planet, they are all sequential hermaphrodites, which means they all hatch as females as they grow out of the predator range of certain predators. And depending on population dynamics, some of them will turn into males, such as this blue-chin male. Very important way to survive in this environment. Now, over the reef, there are numerous small fish species. This is called rainbow wrasse. Now, maybe some of you noticed the wrasse would come up in balls off of the reef and then go right back down to the reef very quickly. And what they're doing is ejecting fertilized eggs into the environment. This is called broadcast spawning. You can see the ball getting together right there. Excellent way at survival. Now, at Champion Island in the deeper water, when we get in, there was an abundance of fish. This is from the butterfly fish family, or group, rather. These are called barber fish, and these are cleaner fish. They'll clean larger species that come over the reef. We also had large aggregations of grunts. These are called burrito grunts. And this next one that you're going to see here is actually an endemic species. These are called dusky chubs. And no, I'm not making up these names. Now, on the windward side of Champion Island, these large aggregations were coming here because as the current splits around, bringing in plankton, zooplankton, phytoplankton, and these king angelfish were able to feed quite easily on that side of the island. You also had some individual fish there mixed in with the large schools. This is a type of triggerfish called a black durgan, and this next one is called a Cortez chub. These can get up to a little over a foot in length, just to give you an idea of size. Now, getting back to the reef, we found a few turtles that were coming in, and these turtles are feeding on some of the same algal species as the marine iguanas and even Sally Lightfoot crabs in the low tidal zone. Now, I want you to look at the coloration. This looks different than the other ones that we've seen. Well, this is a younger sea turtle, so the coloration changes, but there is a lot of variation among the different populations in the Pacific. And then these guys showed up, Galapagos sea lions, playing hide and seek and chasing each other among themselves. Now, here in Galapagos, there's a very long maternal care period for sea lions. The mother's milk, the fat level, changes throughout the year depending on the productivity in the ocean. So pups may nurse up to 2 to 3 years. So what is a pup going to do all day while mom forages offshore? They need to stay close where mom left them. Well, they're going to harass anything they can find. And as you can see here, going right after a sea turtle, a male, biting his tail. They will take pufferfish, shake them until they inflate their swim bladder, push them around like a football. They'll bite the caudal fin or tail fins of white-tip reef sharks. They'll use sea urchins break them apart. There's numerous things that they're going to play with. Well, I will give them a little bit of credit because all of that play eventually converts into acquired skill that they will need when they're eventually weaned from their mothers. This is right off the beach at Cerro Dragon on Santa Cruz Island. We had some juvenile white salemas, which is another endemic species, and a brown sea cucumber. This is actually part of a controlled fishery here in Galapagos. Sea cucumbers are like the vacuum cleaners of the seafloor. You can see their tendrils out. They're processing out the nutrients they need, releasing more nutrients into the benthic area, so they're a vital part of the ecosystem. Now, this is one of the most common sea urchin species that we've been able to see. This is a pencil sea urchin, and these are grazers, and they're moving very slowly, but they're also, if you look carefully, you'll note that they have numerous species on their spines. Colonial bryozoans and crustacean algae, so when the sea urchins move, they're a vector for the movement of these other species. Getting back to the damselfish, this is a yellow damselfish, and you'll note the algal patch right underneath it. These are gardeners. They will keep that patch and they will run off large fish. Sea urchin wanders in, they'll grab it in their mouth and throw it to the side. If you place your hand in the garden, they will bite you. Small fish, big attitude. And speaking of small fish, large, looks like blanketing the rocky reef are the black-tipped cardinalfish. And you note among them some juvenile species. This is a razor surgeonfish juvenile. Once again, there's a drastic coloration difference between the juveniles and the adults. Now, you might not even recognize this one as an adult, but this is a king angelfish. Remember, it has just one white stripe and orange tail when they become adults. These are scissor-tailed chromis, and look carefully. You see that white dot right next to the caudal fin? That might confuse a potential predator coming in. They might think that's an eye. It's going in the wrong direction. Now, getting back to the butterfly fish, that we have 3-banded butterfly fish. And if you just hang in the water column very calmly, they will come up to you right over the rocky reef and see if you need a cleaning. There are specific areas on the reef that are known as cleaning stations because you'll have quite a few of these species that do that, and large animals know this and come in specifically for a cleaning. Another diamond stingray. This one was just about a foot of water right next to the beach area where we were at. And this next one is the most common puffer species that we have here. This is called a concentric or bullseye pufferfish. They're always looking for a opportunistic meal. And you may not have noticed because you were looking at the species, but at Bartolome Island this morning, you have noticed some of these lava tubes going down into the ocean. Also, some of the coral heads, you notice looks like they were scraped off. This is done by parrotfish taking the coral polyps and feeding upon that, trying to absorb the zooxanthellae or algae. Now, over the seafloor bottom, you would see, it almost looks like a sea star garden. These are Panamic sea cushions, our largest sea star here in Galapagos. And they are on the sandy bottom. This is how they feed, even going after very small juvenile sea urchins that might be buried in the sand. Now, coming up onto the rocky reef, these are also grazing, but you can probably guess the name of this one. It's called a blue star. Now, sea urchins, this is a flower sea urchin. Now, I needed to speed this up almost 300 times so you can get an idea. They take debris and they'll put it on the dorsal part of the sea urchin to protect them from any predators that might come in and want to break open the sea urchin. This is our largest puffer species. This is called a Pacific spot fin. These can get over 1.5 feet in length. And this was somewhat of an uncommon sighting here in Bartolome. We'll see more of these at Genovesa. This is a Moorish idol, usually traveling in pairs. Now, this is a member of the puffer group, but it does not inflate its swim bladder. This is called a Pacific boxfish, and that's only a couple inches in length. This is an adult female. Males have a lot of bright coloration, including iridescent blue and a little bit of yellow mixed in with the fine mottling. This is our second main species of benthic ray or stingray. This is called a marbled stingray. You can see the marble pattern there. I do enjoy the name in Spanish. It's also called a raya sartén, which means frying pan ray. Now, you take a look in the extension of the tail, you'll see a barb. These do not have venom sacs, but all the connective tissue around that is venomous. This is why stingrays are very painful if you step on them in the shallows. We also had more white-tip reef sharks resting on the bottom. And having a very healthy population of reef sharks is an indication of how healthy the ecosystem is. You have an apex predator with a good population size, and there's a lot going on underneath it. Now see if you can find the fish in this. Oh, there it is. This is a leopard flounder. Now, through its natural history, they've developed coloration very similar to their substrate on the benthic area. However, these fish have chromatophores. There's actually 3 different types of chromatophores, but these are pigment-laced cell structures. Now, what they can do is open or close those chromatophores and change their coloration almost instantly to blend in with the background. Numerous fish species can do this, and octopus are very famous for being able to change the coloration also. Now, very close to the shore, I was able to find this next species. I'm not sure. Maybe someone can help me identifying this particular species. Now you see, I'll just call them floaters. Whatever the case, they do look quite happy floating off the coast of Bartolomé. And as we were finishing off our snorkel, going into the shallows right next to the beach, a lot of you had a wonderful experience with penguins at the beach. Galapagos penguin, an iconic species here. The only tropical penguin species on the planet, the one that nests north of the equatorial line. Now, the only reason that we have penguins here, and has been mentioned, is because of the Cromwell upwelling current to the west of the archipelago. The population is quite small, just a few thousand individuals, and it's very delicate in terms of climatic change. When we have an El Nino, a very strong El Nino, all productivity in the ocean disappears, and you'll find penguins with algal growth on their breast plumage and on the plumage on their wings, which means they've been out in the water too long for less and less food. This population is probably in the past, with very heavy El Ninos, gotten close to extinction, but they are a resilient species. Now, I'm sure most of you subscribe to the magazine National Geographic, and if you remember the May issue, the main subject were penguins. And it was specifically talking about conservation and how resilient penguin species are around the planet in the southern hemisphere. In Galapagos, we've had issues because penguins are lacking nesting area, and it's very hard to do conservation work if you're not sure how many penguins you have. One of my dear friends has been able to do a project. As opposed to going up and handling the penguins, she was able to take photographs. And as you will see here in just a moment, one of the penguins going by, you'll see these black dots on the breast plumage. Those black dots are like a fingerprint. And yearly, you may have 1 or 2 molts yearly with the penguins. They retain those black dots throughout their life. And so if you take a picture, you can have a catalog and use this for conservation efforts here in Galapagos. And this was this afternoon at Sombrero Chino off of Santiago Island. Another lava tube with a skylight bringing light right onto a couple of resting white-tip reef sharks. And this is one of my favorite puffers. This is a guinea fowl puffer fish. Some of you may have seen a bright yellow version of this, which is a color morph. And off of the reef, we had a large school of these. This is also a type of damselfish. These are called Panamic Sergeant Majors. They're feeding up in the water column. And this one was a hard one to find. This is a jewel moray eel. It's one representation of the 3 groups of eels that we have here in Galapagos. Now, I was happy to find this. This is a Galapagos sea robin. I want you to look carefully right underneath the snout. Looks like little claws. Those are modified rays coming off of the pectoral fins, which they use to sense in the sandy bottom any potential prey. They also have an armored plate on their forehead and on the front that protects them from any predators down at the bottom. It's a very rare sighting to find these. And spotted eagle rays. We saw some of these as we were kayaking in the mangroves the other day. Spotted eagle rays are more of a pelagic ray up in the water column, but they do feed on the bottom. And you can see this pointed snout Almost looks like a shovel. They're able to dig down and be able to find small crustaceans and invertebrates. Very graceful. I hope you enjoyed this, and it gives you a better idea of the uniqueness of the surrounding waters of the Galapagos archipelago. Please protect this ocean.